Turkey has voted. It's a country of 85 million and it's seen its most consequential election. The whole world is talking about it.
Turkey's president will face his biggest electoral test.
But victory for the president is far from guaranteed.
President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has never had it so tough as Turks prepare to head to the polls.
The incumbent, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is facing an opposition alliance led by Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu in an extremely tight race.
The West, being the West, seems to know the result already. They say it's the end of the road for Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He led this country for 2 decades. He wanted to become the leader of the Islamic world, but now he's fighting to keep his presidential chair. What's his story and why should you care? Hello and welcome, I'm Palki Sharma, and on this show we try to read between the lines, the stated and the unstated, the obvious and the hidden, to bring you the full story. Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Hate him, love him, you cannot ignore him. Ask Turkiye, where he's both adored and abhorred. He's arguably the country's most influential leader since Kemal Atatürk. How did he get here? Erdogan was born in February 1954 in Rize. His father was a coast guard, but soon they moved to Istanbul to give the children a better upbringing. Erdogan was raised in a working-class district of Istanbul. His family wasn't particularly well off. Erdogan is said to have sold lemonade and sesame buns to make some extra cash. But his big passion was football. Young Erdogan dreamt of little but football. His tall frame, just over 6 feet, made him a sought-after centre forward. He became a semi-professional footballer at local clubs. Soon he had to give it up. Erdogan's father thought there was no future or money in football, so he was packed off to pursue religious studies, and that's when he drifted towards politics. In the 1970s and 80s, Erdogan became active in local politics. He joined something called the Pro-Islamic Welfare Party. In 1994, he was elected as the mayor of Istanbul. For the secular establishment, this was shocking, a pro-Islamic party candidate leading Istanbul. But this stint was short-lived. In 1998, he was convicted for inciting religious hatred. He recited a poem comparing mosques to barracks. He was sent to prison for 10 months. Many thought this was the end of his political career. Turns out it was just the beginning. In 1999, a major earthquake struck Turkey. I know what you're thinking. An earthquake ravaged the country 3 months back, and it may spell the end of his political career, or so his critics hope. The thing is, earthquakes and Erdogan's career seem to be linked. I'll explain in a bit. For now, let's go back to 1999, that quake that we talked about. It killed some 17,000 people. It exposed Turkey's poor infrastructure. The buildings came crashing down, and Erdogan's career saw a meteoric rise. In 2001, he formed a new party, AKP, translates into English as the Justice and Development Party. In 2002, they won the parliamentary election. The following year, Erdogan became prime minister. His big election promise was to rebuild his country, and that's exactly what he did. There was a building frenzy. Everywhere you looked, they were building something. In 20 years, they built some 20 million housing units. It's what you call a construction boom. Erdogan was reshaping skylines, connecting provinces via airports and highways. The middle class cheered him. They benefited the most from this boom. A new class of wealthy AKP supporters was created. They were loyal to him. The first 10 years of his rule were like a dream. Massive economic growth, an expanding middle class, millions being pulled out of poverty, more tolerance for religious women, and Turkey's rise as a regional power. It appeared like Erdogan could do no wrong. His people loved him. The West loved him. They saw Erdogan's Turkiye as a vibrant mix of Islam and democracy. They saw it as a model for the rest of West Asia. But like all good movies, this too had a plot twist. It began in 2013. The setting was this place, Gezi Park in Istanbul. The government wanted to transform the park, the people did not, so they protested. The response was unprecedented. Forced evictions, excessive use of police force, and millions on the street slamming the government. Erdogan looked less like a reformer and more like a sultan from the Ottoman Empire. The protests soon died, but they exposed his authoritarian streak. His 2 terms as prime minister were coming to an end. He was barred from running for a 3rd term. So in 2014, he ran for president. He thought he'll introduce reforms / amass power as president. But the voters had other plans. Erdogan's party lost majority in parliament, and then came the coup, or the attempted coup. The date was 16 July 2016. It was a Saturday. In the early hours of this day, Turkish commandos were seen dropping into a luxury hotel in Marmaris. They were equipped with rifles and grenades, and they were looking for one man, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. In Ankara, rebel soldiers had already blocked roads. State buildings were being bombed. Capturing Erdogan would have been the showpiece move of this coup, but it was not to be. He got a tip-off, and he got on a civilian plane. By the time he landed in Istanbul's Atatürk airport, he wasn't just any other leader. He was the leader who'd survived a violent coup attempt. That night changed both Turkiye and Erdogan's career. He began a fierce crackdown. Tens of thousands of public servants were sacked. Thousands of people were detained. All critics became enemies. Erdogan tightened his grip on power. He held a referendum in 2017, ostensibly to modernize the constitution, actually to give himself sweeping powers. Turkey went from being a parliamentary to a presidential republic. And after that, there was no stopping Erdogan. In the last 6 years, he has muzzled dissent, jailed critics, and squeezed the media. What did him in, though, was the economy. He was so drunk on power that he began defying the rules of economics. In 2021, inflation soared. Erdogan slashed interest rates to curb it. It was like cutting a wound further to stop the bleeding. It doesn't work. Any economist would tell you this. You raise interest rates to cut inflation. But Erdogan persisted with his dangerous experiment. Inflation hit a record 85%. Turkish currency, the lira, crashed. Millions lost their savings. People struggled to pay for food. They were miserable. Then came the earthquake, February 2023. It was the proverbial last nail in the coffin. The parallels with 1999 are eerie. Record high inflation, unhappy population, massive earthquake shifting the tectonic plates of Turkish politics. Only then, it propelled Erdogan to power, and this time it could lead to his crash. At the height of his power, Erdogan chased another dream, to lead the Islamic world, to revive the Ottoman glory. He challenged regional powers like Saudi Arabia. He tried to form a parallel alliance with Malaysia and Pakistan, whipped up the Kashmir issue at the United Nations to project himself as the leader of all Muslims. It came to naught. In the last few months, he's had to eat crow and reach out to the same regional powers. The West that once batted for him now wants him gone. The NATO sees him as a problematic member. So this is what Erdogan has. After 2 decades in power, his people are unhappy, his neighbors are wary, and his Western allies are disillusioned. Will he survive this test? What will a post-Erdogan Turkey look like? Will his challenger prove to be a better leader? The world awaits these answers as much as the people of Turkey.